Welcome, Asian one. Come, sit by the bonfire. It's warm, may comfort you, but beware. In this land, even the light casts shadows. You seek the tale of dark souls. Very well, but know this. Like the curse that plagues this land, the story is not for the faint of a heart. In the age before the flame, when the gaming world was shrouded in casual fog, there arose a legend born not of triumph but of a failure, a legend that would come to known as Dark Souls. But to understand this legend, we must kindle the embers of its past. Are you prepared? Journey. The path ahead is treacherous, filled with corporate pitfalls and development follows. Do you dare to proceed? Ah, but in true Dark Souls fashion, your choice matters not. The wheel of fate has already begun to run. Now let's kindle the first ember. In the realm of gaming, long ago, there raged a great war, not of swords and sorcery, but of plastic boxes and processing power. They called it the console wars. The year is 2005. Microsoft, with its mighty Xbox 360, had launched a surprise attack on the kingdoms of gaming. Sony, both unawares, found its PlayStation empire under siege. Their precious market share, once thought inaccessible, began to crumble like the walls of Lothric. In their desperation, Sony turned to the ancient art of corporate espionage. They gazed upon Microsoft's lens and saw a shining jewel, the Elder Scrolls Fourth, Oblivion. Ah, cried Sony, we shall create our own open world RPG, and it shall be glorious. But as any seasoned adventurer knows, the path to glory is paved with bonds of overconfident. Sony, in this haste, saw the champion to force this new game. Their eyes fell upon a small studio known as From Software, creators of the Kingsfield series. A deal was struck, a bargain was made, a union was formed, a quest began. But little did they know, this quest would lead them not to triumph but to their darkest hour. For you see, SN1, the game they created was, how shall we put it, a streaming pile of Blight Town, absolute Blight Town sludge. For 2 years, From Software toiled, but their creation was a monstrosity, an abomination that could barely even run. It was a failure so complete, so utterly devastating that Sony and From Software agreed to cast it into the abyss of forgotten projects. But in the darkest depths, in the midst of failure and despair, a small ember began to glow. In the shadows lurked a figure, a man whose vision would rekindle flame of creation. His name, whispered in reverent tones throughout the lands, was Hidetaki Miyazaki, a lowly cook in the great machine of From Software. So, not a failure, but opportunity. Where others saw a dead project, he envisioned a revolution with nothing to lose and everything to gain. He stepped forward to lead the project, and thus, from the ashes of failure, Demon Souls was born. But this dear listener was merely the kindling. The true fire was yet to come. Now, Asian one, shall we delve deeper into the abyss of creation? The tale of demon souls awaits a precursor to the legend we speak. Are you prepared to face the challenges ahead? Remember, in this tale, as in the game itself, death is not the end but a teacher. Now, let us stroke the flames of next ember, the ember of rebirth. Demon Souls rises from the ashes. Miyazaki had just stepped forward to lead the project. Miyazaki, our unexpected hero, had a vision, but it wasn't of a sprawling open worlds of epic quests. No, his vision was darker, more intimate. He sought to recreate that feeling of exploring a foreign land where every step could be your last. No, his vision was more darker, more intimate. He sought to recreate that feeling of exploring a foreign land where every step could be your last. Gone were the hand-holding tutorials and cheerful NPCs in their place. Miyazaki crafted a world of decay and challenge, corruption and curse. Demon Souls was born as game where death wasn't just expected, it was the teacher. But here's the twist, dear listener. When Miyazaki presented this dark creation to Sony's executives, he, well, let's just say, he employed a bit of trickery worth of patches himself. You see, Demon Souls was brutally difficult. So difficult, in fact, that Miyazaki feared the executives could reject it outright. So, in a move that would make any illusory whale proud, he neglected to mention one tiny detail during his presentation. You see, Asian one. He conveniently forgot to tell them that you die in the game, you lose half of your health. A small omission. Wouldn't you agree? And so, Demon Souls was allowed to live, but its trials were far from over. When it was finally released at the Tokyo Game Show, the reception was, well, let's just say it made the catacombs look welcoming. People hated it. Can you believe this? One Sony executive even called it, and I quote, unbelievably bad. Can you imagine? The game that would spawn a legend dismissed as trash? It's enough to make a grown asylum demon cry. But here's where our tale takes an unexpected turn. Like a hidden path in Blight Town, while Japan turned its nose up at demon souls, whispers at its cruel beauty began to spread in the West, the land of freedom, the allied duchies of America. Brave souls started importing the game, drawn to its unforgiving challenges like moths to a flame. Word of mouth spread faster than Priscilla invisibility. 100,000 copies sold, then a million. The once rejected game had found its place Massachusetts, every last of one of them. And among those players, a cult following began to form. Demon Souls had done the impossible. It had carved out a niche in a world of hand-only games, proving that there was a hunger for a challenge, for a mystery, for games that demanded more from their players. But this Asian one was merely kindling. The true inferno was yet to come. For in the wake of Demon Souls' unexpected success, a new project began to take shape. A project that would become legend. Dark Souls was coming, but in the path of greatness was far from certain. Tell me, Asian one, are you prepared to hear of its birth, of the trials and tribulation that forged the game we know today? But as we have learned, your choice is merely an illusion. The wheel of fate turns ever onward. Now let's kindle the next ember and delve into the creation of Dark Souls itself. Now, Asian one, we come to the crucible of our tale, the forging of Dark Souls itself. But before we delve into its creation, let us ponder the world that birthed it. Picture a realm suspended between life and death, where the very concept of time is convoluted. A world where ancient gods cling desperately to their fading power, and undead warriors rise again and again and again, driven by an inexorable curse. One might say it's the ultimate test of perseverance. The world, like our own, was born from an age of ancients. In the beginning, there was no light, no dark, only eternal dragons and archetypes reaching into the grey void. But then came fire, and with it, disparity. And as it often the case when someone introduces a little chaos, things got rather interesting. From the dark they came, Nito, the first of the dead, the witch of Ij'Alit, and her daughters of chaos, Gwyn, the lord of sunlight, and his faithful knights, and the fugitive pygmy, so easily forgotten. But I digress. This legend, this rich tapestry of lore, did not spring fully formed from the mind of Miyazaki. No, like a skilled blacksmith, he forged it piece by piece, folding in influences from across the realms of literature and mythology. Miyazaki, you see, was a voracious reader in his youth, but his English was poor, leaving him to fill in the gaps of Western fantasy he consumed. This experience of piecing together half-understood story would become the very foundation of Dark Souls' narrative style. As Miyazaki began work on Dark Souls, he gathered his team like a lord assembling his covenant. But this was no ordinary team development process. Miyazaki, now a true auteur, took a hands-on approach. He personally named every character, every boss, every item in the game. Even the menu text didn't expect his scrutiny. But here's the twist, Asian one. Miyazaki wasn't a tyrant. No, he was more like, well, imagine Soler, but as a game director. Miyazaki encouraged his team to infuse their own ideas into the world. He would spend hours philosophizing with them about the game's esoteric concepts, ensuring everyone understood the vision. It was as if he was creating a pantheon of mini Miyazakis, all aligned in purpose, in single purpose. One can only imagine the profound discussion that must have taken place. But why exactly does the sun praise us? This discussion must be had place there. The collaborative approach bore fruit in unexpected ways. Take Sith, the Scaleless. For instance, did you know his character was inspired by Michael Mork's Eric's of Malinomon, or that gaping dragon's Cortex design came from a throwaway comment about a monster with a giant mouth for a belly. It seems even the depths of despair there's room for a little creative whimsy. But the true genius of Dark Souls lay not just in its world, but in how the world was presented. Miyazaki, drawing from his experiences with fragmented storytelling, decided to sprinkle the lore throughout the game like Priscilla's invisibility dust. It is as if he looked at traditional narrative structure and thought there is need to be a challenge of worthy. Every sword, every shield, every seemingly insignificant trinket held a piece of the story. The description of a simple ring could hint at the fall of a mighty kingdom. A hidden item in a forgotten corner could reveal the tragic tale of long dead heroes. The approach to its storytelling was revolutionary. It turned players into archaeologists, piecing together the history of a dying world from a fragments and whispers. It spawned countless lore videos, theory crafting sessions, and heated debates. Suddenly, the gaming community found itself engaging in the kind of intense textual analysis usually reserved for literally scholars. Who knew digital corpse runs could lead to such intellectual pursuits? A world perpetually balanced on the knife edge between faded glory utter ruin. This is Lordran, a realm where every very air seems thick with a melancholy and lost purpose. From the moment you step foot in a Firling shrine, the weight of countless ages presses down upon you. Crumbling architecture looms overhead, as testament to fallen kingdoms and forgotten rulers. The land itself seems to exhale despair. Yet, yet there is a haunting beauty to it all. In undead work, the hollow tales of former citizens roam endlessly, a grim reminder of the curse that plagues this land. The depths echo with unseen horrors, while blind towns, rickety structures creak and groan, threatening to plummet you into the muck below. This omnipresent sense of decay and danger keeps you constantly on edge. Every new area promises fresh horrors, yet you are compelled to press on, driven by a mix of duty and morbid curiosity. But it's not all gloom and doom. Remember the first time you laid eyes on Enoloda, the city of gods, that moment when the sun broke through the perpetual twilight, bathing the grand architecture in golden light. Ah, breathtaking, wasn't it? Just beautiful. These moments of beauty amidst the decay serve to heighten the overall atmosphere. They remind you of what once was and what has been lost. They give you something to fight for, a reason to rekindle the flame. And let's not forget the sound design. Asian one, the oppressive silence broken only by the clinking of your armor, the distant roars of monsters, the mournful sighs of the wind through ancient stonework, each sound carefully crafted to immerse you fully in this dying world. The tolling of the bells of awakening, the ominous laughter of the patches, the sorrowful melody in Gwyn's boss fight. These auditory cues burn themselves into your memory, becoming inseparable from your experience of Lordran. This atmosphere isn't just a window dressing, mind you. It's integral to the Dark Souls experience. It informs every aspect of the game, from the cryptic storytelling to the witty combat. Speaking of which, Dark Souls' approach to storytelling is as unconventional as it's brilliant. Gone are the lengthy cutscenes and expository dialogue you might expect from a fantasy epic. Instead, Dark Souls weave its narrative into the very fabric of its world. From the moment you begin your journey, you are thrust into this world of a mid-apocalypse with little exploration of how things come to this way. Who are you? Why are you here? What is the significance of this undead prophecy? The game offers no easy answers. Instead, you must piece together the story from fragments, and cryptic moment from a world-weary NPC here, an item description there, environmental details that hint at a past events. It's like assembling a vast, tragic puzzle with many pieces missing or worn beyond recognition. This approach to storytelling serves It multiple purposes. It mirrors your character's own journey of discovery. As you slowly unravel the mysteries of Lordan, it encounters exploration and careful observation, rewarding the curious and the persistent. But perhaps most importantly, it allows for ambiguity. The gaps in the story aren't just missing information, The spaces for the player's imagination to fill. Was Gwyn a noble lord sacrificing himself for these people, or a selfish god clinging desperately to power? The game provides evidence for both interpretations and many others. This ambiguity extends to your own role in the story. Are you really a chosen one, designed to rekindle this flame, or just another undead being manipulated by a greater powers? The choice to link the fire or let it fade takes on a different meanings depending on how you have interpreted the fragments of lore. It's like the world view for you to have a unique experience every time. In essence, Dark Souls doesn't just tell you a story, it makes you an active participant in creating that story. Your interpretation of events, your choices, your victories, and defeats all become part of the narrative tapestry. It's a bold approach, don't you think so, Asian one? One that trusts the player's intelligence and engagement, which bring us to our next point of Dark Souls, that design philosophy. It's a steadfast refusal to hold the player's hand in an era of tutorials, waypoints, and constant guidance. Dark Souls dared to treat its player as an adult capable of finding their own way. From the moment you step into a firelink shrine, you are given a vague objective. Ring two bells of awakening and then left to your own devices. No glowing trail to follow, no minimap dotted with objectives, just you, your wits, and a dying world to explore. The game system are equally opaque. Weapon upgrades, state scaling, convent mechanics, none of these are fully explained. Instead, you are expected to experiment, to learn through doing, and often through failing. This extends to the game's difficulty as well. Dark Souls is hard, yes, but its hardness born of a respect for the player's ability to learn and adapt. Each death is a lesson, each victory hard earned. The game trusts that you will preserve, that you will pay attention to enemy patterns, that you will learn from your mistakes. It believes in your ability to overcome its challenges, even when you might not believe in yourself. This adult treatment isn't just about difficulty, though. It's about treating the player as an active participant in the game's world and system. It's about respecting the player's time and intelligence, about creating a game that rewards investment and engagement. In Dark Souls, knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. Each discovery, each understood mechanic, each mastered enemy pattern is a key that unlocks new possibilities. The game becomes progressively easier, not through reduced difficulty, but through your own growing mastery. It's an approach that fosters a deep sense of achievement. Every progress is yours, every progress truly earned. And that sense of achievement comes a fierce attachment to the game, a feeling that you have genuinely accomplished something noteworthy. This respect for the players permeates every aspect of the game, from its level design to its combat system, which fittingly bring us to our next topic, exploration. The lifeblood of any adventure game, any true adventure. And in Dark Souls, Asian one, exploration is both a reward and a challenge unto itself. Picture Lordran as a vast, interconnected labyrinth. From the moment you leave the undead asylum, the world opens up before you like a deadly flower. Multiple paths branch out from Firelink Shrine, each promising its own danger and discoveries. Will you brave the undead infested burg, descend into the poison choked blight town, or perhaps test your mettle against the scattered hordes of catacombs? The choice, terrifyingly, is yours to bear. But here's the brilliant part. There is no wrong choice. Dark Souls world is designed with multiple valid paths of progression. Yes, some routes are more challenging than others, but the game never explicitly bars you from taking them. This freedom serves multiple purposes. It allows for player agency, letting you tackle the game in an order that suits your playstyle or skill level. It encourages replay, as each subsequent playthrough can take a different route through the world. But perhaps most importantly, it makes explorations feel genuinely rewarding. Every new path you uncover, every shortcut you unlock feels like a personal discovery. You are not just following a predetermined route, you are carving your own path through this hostile world of Dark Souls. And oh, the rewards for exploration. Hidden bonfires that provide much needed respite, powerful weapons and armor secreted away in hard to reach areas, NPCs with their own quest lines tucked away in forgotten corners of the world. Remember the first time you kicked down the ladder in Undead Burg, creating a shortcut back to Firelink Shrine, or when you discovered the hidden bonfire in depths. These moments of discovery are as thrilling as any boss fight. But the freedom of exploration in Dark Souls isn't just about where you can go. It's all about how the world fits together. Which brings us to our next topic. Lordran, Asian One, is a marvel of a legend divine level design. It's not just a series separate of areas strung together. It's a fully realized, interconnected world where everything fits together like a grand, malevolent puzzle. Filing Shrine as the hub, the heart of this dying world. From this central point, paths spiral out in a directions up to the undead burg and down to the catacombs, through the aqueduct to the undead parish, or down the elevator to a New Londo ruins. But here's the truly brilliant part. As you progress, you begin to realize how these seemingly disparate areas connect. That shortcut you unlock doesn't just loop back to where you have been. It's create a new link in this grand network. The moment when you open that gate in the undead parish and realize you are back at Firelink Shrine, it's a revelation. Suddenly, the world feels both larger and more intimate. You begin to understand how everything fits together. Your This interconnectedness serves multiple purposes. On a practical level, it reduces the need for a fast travel, at least in the first half of the game, making your journeys through Loden feel more meaningful and grounded. But more than that, it creates a world that feels unbelievable and lived in. The way the undead work towers over Firelink Shrine, how you can see the bell towards the parish from various vantage points, it all contributes to a sense of a place that few games can match. This arti- architectural, ma- this arti- architect martial this architectural architect architecture. This architectural this architectural marvel extends to vertical spaces as well. Lorden is a world of a dizzying heights and abyssal depths. From the peak of Sense Fortress, you can see much of the world spread out below you. From the depths of Blight Town, you can look up and see the structures you passed you hours ago. And let's not forget the thrill of discovery this interconnectedness enables. Finding a hidden elevator that creates a shortcut between two seemingly unrelated areas. Pure joy. Realizing you can see Twilight's domain from the demon's ruins. A moment of awe. This intricate world design doesn't just serve aesthetic purposes. It's integral to the gameplay experience itself. It encourages exploration, rewards observation, and creates a sense of mastery as you slowly unravel the layout of Loden. But a world, no matter how beautifully designed, is nothing without the means to interact with it. And in Dark Souls, that interaction primarily takes the form of combat. So let us turn our attention to the dance of blades. and sorcery that defines the gameplay of Dark Souls. Combat, the beating heart of Dark Souls. It's here, in the clash of steel and the weaving of spells, that the game truly set itself apart. At first glance, Dark Souls combat might seem slow, even clunky, but this deliberate pace is intentional. Asian one. Every swing of your weapon, every roll, every blow, they all carry weight and consequences. Unlike many action games, unlike many action games where you can unleash flurries of attacks with abandon, Dark Souls demands Dark Souls demand consideration. Each attack animation locks you in a place for a moment. Stamina management is crucial. Run out and you have left vulnerable. This creates a combat system where positioning and timing are paramount. You must learn to read your enemies, to understand their attack patterns and find the openings. Button mashing will only lead you to a swift death. Defensive play is just as important as offense. Your shield can be a lifesaver, but relying on it too heavily will leave you staggered and vulnerable. Rolling provides invincibility frames, but mistiming your roll can be a fatal mistake. But what truly sets Dark Soul combat apart its variety, which brings us to our next point. Dark Souls offers a staggering array of combat options. Want to be a heavily armored knight, shrugging off blows with your great shield? You can do that. Prefer to dance around enemies as a lightly armored dex build? That's viable too. The weapon variety is equally impressive. Straightforward swords, great swords, ultra great swords, rapiers, spears, halberds, with fixed weapons, each of its own moveset and strength, and that's not even touching on range options like bows and crossbows. Then there is magic. Sorceries offer powerful ranged attacks and utility spells. Miracles provide healing and buffs. Pyromancies bring devastating fire-based attack. Each magical discipline feels distinct and offers its own playstyle. The variety extends to defensive options too. Light armor for quick rolling, heavy armor for poise and damage reduction, shields of all sizes, from small bucklers for a pairing to a great shield for turtling up. But here's the brilliant part. All of these options are viable. Dark Souls. Balance isn't about making every build equally powerful in all situations. It's about ensuring that every build has its strengths and weakness, its moments to shine. A heavily armored strength build might struggle with fast enemies, but excels against hard-hitting foes. A sorcerer might be a fragile in a close combat, but devastating at range. It's the rock paper scissor dynamic. It's the rock paper scissor dynamic that makes the combat endlessly engaging. And let's not forget how this variety plays into a boss encounters. Each boss becomes a puzzle to be solved. Which approach will work best? Should you turtle up with a great shield or a strip down for a faster roll? Go in close with a great sword or pelt them with afar with sorceries. This variety doesn't just add replay value. It allows players to find a playstyle that suits them, to force their own path through. Lordran and that Asian one is at the heart of Dark Souls appeal. Now, we come to the crux of matter. Why does the combat of Dark Souls resonate so deeply with so many? At its core, the appeal of Dark Souls combat lies in the sense of genuine achievement. Every victory feels earned, every boss defeated a true accomplishment. The game's difficulty and unforgiving nature make each triumph all the sweeter. Remember the first time you defeated the Bell Gargoyles, or when you finally bested Orenstein and Smoke after countless attempts. These moments stick with you, burned into your memory by the fires of triumph. But it's not just about difficulty. The depth of combat system means that there is always room for improvement, always a new strategy to try or technique to master, perfecting your parry timing, learning to dead angle with an ultra great swords, mastering the art of backstep fishing. Each of these is a journey of improvement. This sense of continuous improvement is addictive. You are not just leveling up your character, you are leveling up yourself as a player. The skills you learn transfer between your playthroughs, between builds, even between games in the series. And let's not forget the satisfaction of finding a build that clicks with you. The moment when you find the perfect weapon, when your build comes together and you feel truly powerful, it's a unique thrill. But perhaps the greatest appeal of Dark Souls combat is how it integrates with the rest of the game. The combat isn't just a means to an end, it's a core part of how you interact with and understand the world of Lordran. Each new enemy is a new puzzle to solve, each area a gauntlet to overcome. The combat ties into the exploration, into the lore, into the very atmosphere of the game. It not just take on it's not just take down. It's an integral part of Dark Souls experience. In the end, the appeal of Dark Souls combat is that it respects you as a player. It challenges you, yes, but it also gives you the tools to rise to the challenge. It asks much of you, but rewards you richly for your efforts. And that Asian one is the essence of Dark Souls, a game that challenges, that frustrates, that sometimes infuriates, but one that ultimately respects its players and in doing so earns a special place in their hearts. But creating this intricate world and mechanic was not without its challenges. As the development progressed, time began to run short. Like the fading of the first flame, the deadline loomed even closer. The team found themselves in their own real world version of Dark Souls, racing against time, facing seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Miyazaki and his team were forced to make difficult choices. Entire areas were left unfinished, their potential unrealized. The second half of the game, from Eno Londo onward, bears the scar of this rushed development. It's testament to the game's strength that even is unfinished. Areas become the stuff of legend. Lost Izalith, Lost Izalith, once envisioned as a sprawling lava-filled nightmare, was reduced to a brief area with a recycled enemies. The bed of chaos, meant to be a climactic encounter, become a frustrating puzzle boss that even Miyazaki would later apologize for in the annals of game development. Yet, even in its unfinished state, Dark Souls stood as a testament to the power of vision and perseverance. Like the chosen undead, rising again and again, Miyazaki and his team pushed through every setback. They were in their own way embodying the very spirit of the game they were creating. And when the game finally launched, it not did so with a bang, but with a whisper. The marketing was minimal. The release quiet. Dark Souls entered the world much like its own, chosen undead, unassuming, overlooked, yet destined for greatness. It was as if the game itself was playing hard to get, daring the gaming world to discover its brilliance. But we are getting ahead of ourselves, Asian One. The tale of Dark Souls, reception, and legacy is an ember for another time. For now, let the fire fade and ponder the intricate web of creation we have unraveled, and perhaps in Dark Souls fashion, ponder it again and again until it all makes sense or doesn't. Ember of Legacy, the undying flame of Dark Souls. The ember we stroke now is that of a legacy. The story of how Dark Souls, against all odds, carved its name into the annals of gaming history. When Dark Souls first emerged from the fog of development, it did so with a little fanfare. No grand marketing campaigns, no flashy commercials. It was as if the game itself was a metaphor for its own world, obscure, challenging, waiting to be discovered. Initial reactions were mixed, put it kindly. Many who picked up the game found themselves woefully unprepared for its challenges. The tutorial boss, the silent demon, became a keeper of swords, turning away those unwilling, get good, as they say. But for those who preserved, who faced death and returned, something magical began to happen. They found themselves drawn into a world unlike any other in gaming, a world where every victory was hardened, where discovery brought both wonder and terror. From the decrepit beauty of Undead Burg to the poised depths of Blighttown, from the great horrors of Enlodo to the ash-covered expanse of Clean of the First Flame, each area told a story, each enemy a piece of the world history, gave an experience of unique to the player. So, word began to spread like a plague of undeath. The allure of Dark Souls infected gaming communities. Forums buzzed with discussion of lore, strategy guides were written and shared, and a new phrase entered the gaming lexicon: praise the sun. But it wasn't just the challenge or the build variety that captivated players. It was the world itself, the story told in fragments and whispers. Players become archaeologists, piecing together the history of Lordran from their descriptions, NPC dialogues, and environmental storytelling. Who was the fugitive pygmy? What really happened to Gwen's first one? What secrets lay hidden in Olasil? This question and countless others fueled discussion, theories, and heated debates that continued to this very day. And then there was this multiplayer, an element so seamlessly woven into the fabric of the game that it became inseparable from the single player experience. Messages left by other players could guide you to a treasure or trick you into a peril. Phantoms of other players glimpsed for mere moments reminded you that you weren't alone in this struggle. Cooperative play allowed you to summon help for difficult bosses, while invasions brought the threat of PvP combat at any moment. The blend of cooperation and competition, of isolation and community, was unlike anything else seen before. It turned Dark Souls into more than just a game. It became a shared experience, a crucible in which legends were born and friendship forged. As months passed, something unprecedented began to happen. Instead of fading into obscurity like so many games before it, Dark Souls only grew stronger. Its player base expanded, its influence spread, and its reputation grew to mythic proportions. The game's success spawned a new subgenre, the Souls-like. Developers around the world sought to capture the magic of Dark Souls, creating their own challenging atmospheric games. Some their own challenging, some succeeded, many failed, but all acknowledge the debt they owe to Miyazaki's creation. But the legacy of Dark Souls extends far beyond mere imitations. It changed the conversation about difficulty in games, challenging the notion that games needed to be accessible to be successful. It proved that there was a hunger for deep, mysterious world that didn't explain everything to the player. Perhaps most importantly, it reminded the gaming world of the joy of discovery, the thrill of overcoming seemingly insurmountable challenges, and the satisfaction of piecing together a fragmented narrative. In many ways, Dark Souls held up to the mirror to the gaming industry, reflecting both its past and its potential future. It showed that games could be more than just entertainment. They could be art, challenges to overcome, mysteries to be unraveled. And yet, for all its acclaim, Dark Souls remains a polarizing game. Its difficulty, its obscure storytelling, its unforgiving nature, these are not for everyone. And that perhaps its greatest strength in a world of games trying to appeal to everyone, Dark Souls dare to be a divisive. Love it or hate it. One cannot deny the impact Dark Souls has had on the gaming landscape. It has inspired countless developers, sparked an endless discussion, and left an indelible mark on gaming culture. And so, Asian One, our tale draws to a close. But like the cycle of fire and dark in the world of Dark Souls, this is not truly an ending. The legacy of Dark Souls lives on. in its sequel, in the game it has inspired, and in the memories of those who dare to face its challenges. As you leave this bonfire, remember, in the world of Dark Souls, and perhaps in our own, to kindle the flame is to extend an edge. But it's a choice each of us must make for ourselves. Will you let the fire fade, or will you link the flame and begin the cycle anew? Whatever you choose, remember this. You died, but you also lived, learned, and triumphed. And isn't that what truly matters? Farewell, Asian one. May you never go hollow.